There are chapters of world history that were never meant for the classroom secrets buried under classified stamps. Stories whispered only in dark rooms where power and truth collide. Imagine wars fought without armies, coups without gunfire, leaders erased without a single trace. These are the CIA's covert wars, the battles you were never taught in school, where nations fell, revolutions rose, and global destinies were rewritten under the silent hand of America's most secretive agency. What if the history you know, the world map you memorized, the alliances you believed in was shaped not by fate, but by hidden operations run from deep inside Langley, Virginia? From the ashes of World War II, as the globe trembled between democracy and communism, the CIA emerged not merely as an intelligence agency, but as a new weapon, an invisible empire built on deception, manipulation, and control. Their mission wasn't just to gather secrets. It was to shape history itself, one covert action at a time. In the name of freedom, they engineered overthrows, rigged elections, armed rebels, and manufactured wars ensuring that every nation tilted toward America's interests, even if it meant crushing democracy in the process. It all began in 1953 when the CIA orchestrated its first major coup, Operation Ajax in Iran. Mohammad Mossadegh, a popular and democratically elected leader, had dared to nationalize his country's oil, threatening the profits of Western corporations. Within months, the CIA funneled millions into propaganda, bribed officials, and staged riots that toppled Mossadegh, restoring the Shah to power. The victory was celebrated in silence, but it taught a dangerous lesson: one coup could change the world and no one had to know. A year later, in Guatemala, the agency used the same blueprint to remove Jacobo Renz, a reformist president whose policies angered American business elites. Planes bombed the capital, rebels stormed the palace, and newspapers funded by the CIA blamed the chaos on communism. This became the new model of warfare: psychological, strategic, and deniable. The CIA didn't just defeat enemies. It rewrote narratives, convincing the world that every move served a higher cause. Through the 1950s and 60s, this shadow play expanded into every corner of the globe. In the Congo, the CIA plotted against Patrice Lumumba, whose dream of African independence conflicted with Western interests. In Indonesia, they supplied anti-communist forces with lists of suspected leftists, fueling mass killings that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. In Cuba, the agency tried everything from assassination attempts on Fidel Castro to the Bay of Pigs invasion, a catastrophic failure that exposed the dangers of covert power. Yet for every operation that failed publicly, dozens succeeded silently. They manipulated Italian and Japanese elections, armed rebels in Tibet, and turned small nations into pawns on the Cold War chessboard, all while preaching freedom and democracy to the rest of the world. But the CIA's most chilling experiments weren't only abroad, they were conducted on their own citizens. Under the notorious MKUltra program, the agency tested mind control, hypnosis, and LSD on unwitting subjects, hoping to find ways to manipulate thought and behavior. People were drugged, tortured, and studied like lab rats, all in the name of national security. When the program was exposed, officials destroyed files, denied knowledge, and quietly shifted focus to new forms of control: media, propaganda, and technology. By the 1970s, the CIA's power had grown so vast that it began operating beyond the oversight of presidents or Congress. Whistleblowers revealed assassination plots, surveillance programs, and secret prisons. The Church Committee investigations briefly pulled back the curtain, but much of the truth remained buried, hidden behind classified stamps and redacted pages. In Latin America, the agency helped train death squads during Operation Condor, supporting brutal dictatorships under the guise of anti-communism. In Chile, they undermined Salvador Allende, the world's first democratically elected Marxist president, paving the way for General Pinochet's bloody regime. In Nicaragua, they funded the Contras, despite their atrocities against civilians, leading to the infamous Iran-Contra scandal of the 1980s. The CIA became a global puppeteer, pulling strings from afar, deciding who rose and who fell, all while the American public remained in the dark. Their methods evolved with time. During the Soviet-Afghan War, they armed Mujahideen fighters, including figures who would later form the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. What began as an effort to bleed the Soviets ultimately unleashed a monster that would haunt the world for decades. As the Cold War ended, many assumed the CIA's shadow wars would fade, but they merely changed shape. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the agency turned its focus toward counterterrorism and digital intelligence, developing tools to monitor global communications and influence online narratives. After 9/11s, the CIA's covert actions reached new heights. Drone strikes, black sites, and extraordinary renditions became the new face of invisible warfare. Secret prisons in Eastern Europe, interrogations hidden from the public eye, and targeted killings justified by classified intelligence, all carried out in the name of freedom. Yet each act blurred the moral lines between defense and domination. The same agency that once fought communism was now shaping global policy in the shadows of terrorism and cybersecurity. But the question remains, who watches the watchers? With so much power concentrated in secrecy, accountability fades. Documents declassified decades later reveal only fragments of the truth, while countless operations remain untold. In reality, the CIA's greatest weapon has always been its ability to erase evidence, destroying records, silencing witnesses, and rewriting history to suit its narrative. Even Hollywood has played a role, turning real covert actions into patriotic myths, while the darker truths remain buried. The phrase "for national security" became a shield behind which anything could be justified: coup plots, assassinations, psychological warfare, even biological experiments. What began as a defense against totalitarianism became a machinery capable of creating it. The irony is haunting. In trying to control the world, the CIA may have lost control of truth itself. Many of the modern geopolitical crises, from Middle Eastern instability to Central American migrations, trace back to covert actions decades ago. Nations still bear scars from invisible wars fought in Washington's name. And as digital surveillance replaces spies and AI-driven propaganda replaces leaflets, the legacy of covert control continues evolving, expanding, unseen. The agency's hand can now manipulate markets, shape elections, and guide public opinion without firing a single shot. In a world flooded with disinformation, it becomes almost impossible to separate truth from illusion. And maybe that's the point. What makes the CIA's story so fascinating and terrifying is not just what they did, but how easily it all stayed hidden. For generations, Americans grew up believing in clear heroes and villains, unaware that their own government blurred those lines behind closed doors. The textbooks told one story. The archives tell another. And as each decade passes, more files are quietly declassified, revealing that history as we know it was edited, redacted, and rearranged by unseen authors. From coups and conspiracies to secret wars and psychological experiments, the real story of the CIA is not one of intelligence gathering. It's one of power without borders, accountability, or memory. The greatest covert war wasn't against communism, terrorism, or foreign enemies, it was against truth itself. And as long as secrecy remains stronger than transparency, the battles will continue, hidden beneath the illusion of peace. Because the most dangerous wars are not fought with weapons, but with silence. And if history has taught us anything, it's this. The truth may be buried, but it never stays buried forever.